All right, gonna break into this package. Back up here. So that's roughly the size. This is the advertised 110 gallon transfer tank from Vevor. So, by myself, I don't do this generally, but I saw enough online that I think we should go over a couple things. Let me break into it. All right, out of the box. There's the zip tie. Cut that and we'll open this up and see what we have. Okay, so right from jump, the diesel pump on-off switch is probably started out fully pre-assembled, but it didn't arrive from China fully pre-assembled, so we'll remedy that. Okay, corrected, and while I was at it, tested to ensure that it works. Okay, the box is open, and the contents are the nozzle, also a fitting for the hose, and also a little padlock. I'm gonna opine on the padlock. I see that it is commented on in other videos that it's a shitty little padlock. Well, it's a shitty little padlock to lock a plastic box. If somebody wants to get into this box, whether that padlock's there or not doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It's like locking the doors on a convertible car. Anybody with a knife is going to get into your car. There's not much point in locking it and wrecking a $5,000 roof when they can just go in and steal your $200 stereo. And same with this thing. Locking it is kind of pointless. I probably will, just because at a gas station will keep an honest guy honest. But it doesn't matter what lock you put on it. You could put a $100 high security lock on there and somebody would just cut the plastic hasp right there and lift the lid up and do what they needed to do, leaving the lock in place. So that's pointless. Also, while we're in this box, let's talk about this fitting. Let me get it in camera. You'll note that the fitting is threaded with an O-ring. It's not tapered. The sealing of the device is only marginally dependent on the amount of pressure that's involved in tightening it. The sealing of the device is based on the O-ring seating properly. There's not any real reason to throw a lot of goo on a brass fitting, a brass thread, because a brass thread is a good, competent thread for if it's been machined at all correctly, and it doesn't provide any route for leakage to get past unless the O-ring leaks. And if the O-ring leaks, you probably want to know the O-ring's leaking and deal with it on a clean piece of metal instead of having to slop around with thread sealants and never sees and perfunctory goo that doesn't bring anything to the party anyways. Just my thoughts. Your mileage may vary. Do what you want. Rest assured, my assembly will be dry. Okay, assembly tweaks. This guy, as has been elsewhere reported, is a vented cap, which is good. This is supposed to be a one-way vented cap, meaning it'll let air in. You don't want to suck in the sides when you're pumping gas, pumping diesel, but by the same token, you don't want to let diesel out. So that there's a nut on the back. Nut was not even finger tight. That was rattling all over. So I had to tighten that nut up. Otherwise, diesel would have leaked out the top. So he's going back on now. And then this bulkhead fitting, all 5 of those screws were finger tight, maybe. Yeah, they were finger tight. It was a little more than loose. But there was plenty with just a regular Phillips head screwdriver for me to get some more on it. I'm a little ginger to go too far with it. it is a lot of plastic, but nonetheless, I was able to tighten all of them up without much concern about the torque I was putting on it. These two plumber's clamps, both loose, finger tightish. They had been wound up a little bit. They used some kind of assembly lube to put them on there. It looks like Vaseline to me, but who knows what. In any event, they did not tighten these clamps anywhere near what I would consider adequate. So that was corrected. Then, turning the corner, there are two square drive screws down here that hold the pump itself in. Not even finger tight. Just laid in their holes. The pump was rattling around all over the place, so we fixed that. Then there were reports that there were leaks at the filter previously. Well, I mean, I haven't put any fuel in it yet, so I don't know whether it would have leaked or not. But I doubt it because it was on there way tighter than I put filters on stuff. I go kind of as tight as my hands can, and then maybe an eighth of a turn with some kind of strap wrench or something to get them a little bit snugger than finger tight, but that's always served me well. But these were reefed on there. So I took it off, and hence the paint, because I had to use a real wrench to get it off of there. And it was assembled dry, so there was no lube on the gasket. So I got some jack oil out, and I lubed the gasket and put it back on there more to my liking. So, but I'm not going to say it was going to leak because, boy, it was on there tight. And you got this Street 90 that ties into the hose. The problem here is that the Street 90 is a cast part, and then it's galvanized coated. I don't know about galvanized coating in a diesel fuel system. I'm not going to opine on that. I wouldn't seek it, but it is what it is. However, what it is not is a machined surface. So it's a crapshoot. I'm going to keep an eye on it, and we'll see what happens with it. Moving along around the corner, this guy is your nozzle, and that's the fitting that was in the box. Nice fitting, swivel fitting. It is threaded into an aluminum body, so it's just something to pay attention to. There's an O-ring also on the end of this, and it actually can take a little more oomph getting it put in there because it's captured by that red plastic. So the O-ring is up in there. When you tighten down on it, the O-ring's got nowhere to go except to tighten up. So, I mean, theoretically, you could over-tighten it and flatten it and wreck it, but if you're not a gorilla, you can apply a little force to that without losing too much sleep. The other one is similar to the one on the other end of the hose, except that this brass has been machined, and this is a nice finished surface here, and the O-ring is compressed in there. I'm pretty confident that that's fine. This fitting and the one over here, I did put a wrench on both of them, but only to get it past finger tight. I mean, this is going to be in use. You take it in, you take it out. So you want to be reasonably satisfied that you did what you could to try to keep the diesel inside the hose. Then the nozzle itself, which takes us to the big picture of this thing. These two shapes here clearly were put in there to create a place to put the hose. So there is a routing defined by the machine for how the hoses will run, where the nozzle will be at rest, all that. That's great. It's kind of not going to happen in the real world. I don't know about everybody else, but I got a couple of grandsons that work for me, and they don't have the patience to do this. Plus, they didn't pay for any of this. I'm old. I paid for it. I'll take the time to put it back together right. But it's finicky at best, and the hose is going to leak. I mean, the nozzle is going to leak. It's inevitable that it will leak, put in that position inside there. So I'm going to keep white balls. I've got rolls of white balls. I'll just keep a bunch of white balls in there. I'll probably stuff one in the nozzle when I'm not using it, and then keep a couple handy to clean up messes, because I don't want the back of my truck dripping diesel. And if I place it on my property somewhere, I don't want my property. I took I paid to get the dinosaur oil out of the ground. I'm not going to give it back to the ground for free. Oh, I got the lid back off of that, back off the fill lid off for a reason. And the reason is that gasket that goes in there falls out. And it falls out over that big hole. I'm not real good at math, but I got a pretty good idea what the odds are of me losing that gasket down that hole. So I got out the handy spray contact cement, and I sprayed it, and I'm waiting for it to dry up a little bit, and then I'm going to get the one side of that gasket glued to the inside of that cap, so when I put it on there, at least until the petroleum fumes eat up the contact cement, I'll have something that resembles a gasket that stays in place. So that's the deal on that. So a lot of assembly here. Oh no, there was a lot of chasing the final assembly methods on this thing to get it where I'm even ready. And did we even cover this? You'll see elsewhere where these things are reported on that this is a leak point. And I went to thinking I was going to do something about it, but they're tight, and it's hard to tell. Maybe you can see it. It looks like you almost can see it. But it appears something's on those threads because it's blue down there in the bottom of the hole. And that would indicate, I don't know, thread locker or something went in there. So maybe the manufacturer got wind of the complaints about leakage there and did something about it. I don't know. I'm prepared to do something about it. It wouldn't be hard to put a paper gasket in there if that's what it takes. But in the meantime, I'm going to see if it leaks. Which is, have I got access to that manual? Or have I got it buried so deep in my pile of tools that I can't find it? Yeah, this is the diesel tank manual. So let's refer to the instructions. I know I don't like doing that either, but there is an important, what I thought was an important note in here. Here we go. So 116 gallon safety fill capacity is 104 gallons, right? So that's what? 12 gallons less than the max fill. The 58 gallons is 52, which is 6 gallons less than the max fill. So guys are complaining about not being able to fill to the advertised rate. I guess you can. If it's a hot summer day and the plastic's expanding and you want to take it to the tippity top, have at it, Shriner. But I'm going to go with I'm going to put about 100 gallons in it, and I'm going to call that pretty good. 100 gallons is pretty good to run around the back of a truck. And that is where it takes us, is that I'm calling this a 100-gallon tank. And if nothing leaks at 100 gallons, I'm happy. If I'm at 100 and, what did I say, 16 gallons, and it's leaking, yeah, I probably got it coming. They kind of warned me. They talked about a safe fill point at 104 gallons, and I took it well beyond that, and I'm going to err on the side of caution anyways and keep it around 100 gallons. So you do what you want. God knows I'm gonna. But the key here is to get something put together that actually works for you and doesn't, this stuff is not cheap. So I don't want to constantly be fighting a battle of collecting old diesel. But by the same token, my previous method was I have a diesel pump, but I was still using 5-gallon cans. I mean, some days like 10, 12 5-gallon cans. And then I was pumping out of the cans into the equipment. Or if the job merited it and it was contractual or something, I would have a fuel delivery. But I hate paying more for off-road diesel because I got it delivered than I pay for on-road diesel by going to the pump and getting it there. So anyways, teach his own. So that's the front end of this thing. I'm going to fill it tomorrow when there's a fuel oil guy near me open that does off-road. And we'll see how it behaves, and I'll continue this thing or put another one up on YouTube. There you go. All right. So I had this in yesterday to get filled, and I put in 100.13 gallons. There was a leak, but it wasn't really a leak, it was an event. And that event was, not sure what he is, but I'm going to guess that's probably the business end of the, I don't know what it is. Can I get this off here? Oh, give me a second here. Are we winning? No, whatever that guy does, I'll have to figure it out. But he burped when I was filling, so that's what this little leak is here. And anyways, he burped when I was filling, so created some leak inside. Not major. A few drips came down. I'm cleaning that up now. It sat there since last night without leaking all over. Yeah, this is part of it here. So some minor leakage to be expected. Not worried about it much. So I still haven't run it except for testing it, but I did put 100.13 gallons in it. So let's take a look. Hold on while all right, so I just checked. The fluid level is 3 inches below overflow coming out of this cap at 100.13 gallons. So that says to me that this will never take, at least not in November temperatures, it's never going to take another almost 16 gallons. Hell, I doubt it'll take another 4 gallons to get it. I think I'm higher than I want to be, frankly. I mean, 3 inches down from that cap is, I don't know, let's call it there. So it's still about a half an inch above this area. So it's into this upper elevation. It's certainly higher than this, which was a professed leak point. And I got no liquid anywhere else around the truck. So it's holding its temperature. I mean, it's holding its diesel. I want to also add that at 100 gallons, I'm looking at this. When it was half full, I had almost 55 gallons. It was a little above 3/8 full, showing 50 gallons. So, yeah, the gauge is off by about 20-25%. I can live with that. So that's the deal with this thing. I can put 100 in it without worrying about it, though it's more than I anticipated. It's a higher level than I anticipated, but I'll live with it. And yeah, that's about all she wrote. If something else comes up, I'll holler.